I know the risks. But I can't let her destroy this village. That night, Obina made his way to the shrine. The air was still, the village eerily quiet. He moved like a shadow, avoiding the main paths, making sure no one saw him. The shrine stood at the heart of the village, its stone walls bathed in moonlight. Obina had been there many times before, but tonight, it felt different, sinister. He could feel Amara's presence even before he entered. He slipped inside, the cool air of the shrine greeting him like a chill down his spine. He moved quickly, searching for any sign of the ritual Chikwudi had mentioned. If he could find proof of Amara's involvement, he could expose her. In the corner of the shrine, near the altar of the river god, Obina spotted something, a small bundle of herbs, wrapped in cloth and hidden beneath a stone. He knelt down, carefully unwrapping the bundle. Inside were strange symbols drawn in ash, and the pungent smell of foul magic filled the air. His heart pounded as he realized what he had found. This was no offering to Ovia, this was dark magic, the kind used to corrupt and manipulate the natural order. Before he could react, a voice echoed from the shadows. I see you found my little secret, Obina. Obina spun around, his blood running cold. Amara stood in the doorway, her eyes glinting with malevolence. Did you really think you could outsmart me? She purred, stepping closer. You have no idea what you've stumbled into. Obina's hand tightened around the bundle of herbs. The villagers will know the truth. I'll make sure of it. Amara laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the shrine. Oh, Obina. You think the truth matters? By the time I'm done, they'll be begging me to save them from the very thing you're trying to protect. Obina's heart raced as he realized the danger he was in. He had found the proof he needed, but now, he had to survive long enough to reveal it. The next morning, Ijeoma woke with a renewed sense of purpose. Obina's arrival had been unexpected, but it felt like a sign that things could change. She knew that gaining the villagers' trust wouldn't happen overnight, but with Obina's help, she had a glimmer of hope. However, as the sun rose higher in the sky, it became clear that not everyone in the village was willing to let things change so easily. The priestesses, particularly their leader, Amara, had been increasingly vocal about their concerns. That afternoon, as Ijeoma was fetching water from the river, she overheard a group of villagers talking in hushed tones nearby. She paused, hiding behind a tree, straining to hear their conversation. They say the child is cursed, one of the women said. Ever since he was born, strange things have been happening. The river, it's not the same. But Amara said the child is dangerous, another man added. The priestesses have warned us. What if he brings drought? What if the river god is angry? Ijeoma's heart sank as she listened to their words. The priestesses were working harder than ever to turn the villagers against her and Nadasi. She knew that it wouldn't be long before their lies escalated into something far more dangerous. Determined not to let fear consume her, Ijeoma continued her task and returned to her hut. She found Obina waiting for her outside, his expression thoughtful. I've been hearing more of the villagers' worries, he said, his voice low. The priestesses are stirring up fear, just as you suspected. Amara, in particular, seems determined to turn the village against you. Ijeoma frowned. Amara has always held a lot of influence. If she's leading the charge, then it will be difficult to change the villagers' minds. Obina nodded. But not impossible. You must remain strong, Ijeoma. Your son's power will reveal itself in time, and when it does, the villagers will see the truth. Until then, we must be cautious. Ijeoma sighed, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on her again. I just want to protect my son. But I can't fight the whole village. Obina placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You won't have to. We'll find a way to show them that Nadasi is a gift, not a curse. But for now, we must be careful. Amara will not give up her influence without a fight. As the day wore on, Ijeoma and Obina continued to discuss their plans, knowing that time was not on their side. The priestesses were growing bolder, and soon, they would make their move. But Ijeoma refused to let fear take over. She would protect her son, no matter the cost. A week later, the tension in the village reached its peak. The priestesses, led by Amara, had called for a village meeting by the riverbank, under the guise of discussing the upcoming harvest rituals. But Ijeoma knew the real reason behind the gathering. It was an opportunity for the priestesses to publicly denounce her and Nadazi. With Obinna by her side, Ijeoma walked to the river, her heart pounding in her chest. The entire village had gathered, their faces filled with uncertainty and fear. Amara stood at the front, her robes flowing in the breeze, her eyes gleaming with cold determination. "We are gathered here today," Amara began, her voice carrying over the crowd, "to discuss the future of our village. The river has always been our source of life, and the god Ovia has blessed us with his bounty for generations. But now, strange things are happening." The crowd murmured in agreement, their eyes shifting toward Ijeoma. "We must ask ourselves," Amara continued, "why the river god has changed. Why have our fish harvests become less plentiful? Why do the waters no longer flow as they once did?" Ijeoma's heart raced. She could feel the eyes of the entire village on her, waiting for Amara's next words. "The answer is clear," Amara declared, her voice rising. "It is because of the child. The one born of the river. He is not a blessing, he is a curse. A curse that will bring ruin upon us all." The crowd gasped, and Ijeoma felt a wave of panic rise within her. But before she could speak, Obinna stepped forward. "Enough," he called out, his voice firm. "Amara, you speak of fear and superstition. But have you forgotten the power of the river god? Ovia himself has blessed this child. He is not a curse, he is a gift." The villagers hesitated, torn between their trust in Amara and their fear of the unknown. "Do not be blinded by fear," Obinna urged, his voice calm but commanding. "The river god has not abandoned us. The child is the key to restoring balance, not destroying." Obinna's words hung in the air like a thick fog. The villagers shifted uneasily, their eyes flicking between him, Ijeoma, and Amara. Amara's face darkened as she watched Obinna challenge her authority. "And how do you know this?" Amara's voice cut through the crowd like a blade. "What proof do you have that this child is a gift? Do you not see the signs of the river's decline?" Ijeoma's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to speak up, to defend her son, but the weight of the village's distrust stifled her words. Nadazi, oblivious to the tension, played near the edge of the river, dipping his tiny hands into the water. Obinna took a deep breath and stepped closer to the crowd, his posture calm yet powerful. "I have traveled far and wide, seen many strange things. But what I see in this child is not destruction. What I see is potential, potential for great things. Do you not recall the prophecy of the river god? A child born of the river will one day bring balance. Perhaps this child is that very one." The villagers murmured among themselves, uncertain and torn. The prophecy was known to some, whispered among the elders, but it was ancient, and many had forgotten its details. Amara's eyes gleamed with malice as she countered, "Prophecies can be twisted. How do we know this is not a trick? How do we know Ovia himself has not been angered by this boy's existence?" Suddenly, Nadazi, still playing by the river's edge, let out a giggle. He splashed his hands into the water, and in that moment, something incredible happened. The river, which had been flowing sluggishly, began to ripple and glow faintly. A strange, shimmering light pulsed beneath the surface, and the water grew clear, sparkling as if infused with life. The villagers gasped, stepping back in awe. Fish swam toward the shore in abundance, the water teeming with life as it hadn't in months. It was as though the river had awoken from a long slumber, its energy renewed and vibrant. Obinna turned to the crowd, a knowing smile on his face. "This is your proof. The child is not a curse. He is the blessing that Ovia has promised." Ijeoma's breath caught in her throat as she watched the river come to life before her eyes. Nadazi's giggles continued, unaware of the miraculous event he had caused. The power of the river god coursed through his tiny hands, and the villagers could not deny what they had just witnessed. Amara, however, was not so easily swayed. Her eyes narrowed, her lips tight with frustration. She stepped forward, pointing an accusing finger at Nadazi. This is nothing but a trick. The child is dangerous, I tell you. We must not be fooled by these temporary signs. But the villagers were no longer listening to her. Their eyes were fixed on the river, where the fish continued to swarm, the water glistening with vitality. Hope blossomed in their hearts as they realized the truth: Nadazi was not a curse. He was the child of prophecy. One of the elders, a hunched old man with a cane, stepped forward. His voice was raspy but filled with reverence. The river has spoken. The child is blessed by Ovia. We cannot deny it any longer. The crowd murmured in agreement, nodding their heads. Amara's influence began to wane as the truth unfolded before them. Ijeoma felt a surge of relief and pride, her heart swelling with love for her son. Amara, seeing her control slipping, clenched her fists. Her face twisted with anger, but she could do nothing. The villagers were no longer under her sway. The river god's power had revealed itself through Nadazi, and the people could not deny what they had seen. Obina, standing beside Ijeoma, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. The tide is turning, he whispered. But be careful. Amara will not give up easily. Ijeoma nodded, her eyes still on Nadazi as he continued to play by the river. She knew that the battle was far from over, but for the first time, she felt that they had a chance. The villagers were beginning to see the truth, and with Obina's help, they could overcome the fear and superstition that had clouded their hearts. Amara stormed away from the riverbank, her heart pounding with fury. How could she have lost control so easily? That child, Nadazi, was a threat to everything she had worked for. The villagers were turning against her, and soon, her influence would be gone. She paced back and forth inside the shrine, her mind racing. She needed a plan, something that would ensure her power remained intact. If the villagers could not be swayed by fear, then she would have to find another way to undermine Ijeoma and her child. As she brooded, one of the junior priestesses approached cautiously, bowing her head in respect. "Great Amara, is everything all right?" Amara whirled around, her eyes blazing. "No, everything is not all right. That boy, that cursed child, he is ruining everything." The young priestess flinched under Amara's anger but remained silent, waiting for her next words. Amara took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She needed to think clearly if she was going to win this battle. After a moment of silence, a cold smile spread across her face. "We will not give up so easily. If the villagers wish to see the child as a blessing, then we will give them reason to doubt." The junior priestess looked confused. "But, how will we do that?" Amara's smile grew wider, her eyes glinting with malice. "We will create a situation that forces the villagers to question the child's power. Something that makes them doubt whether Ovia truly favors him." The priestess nodded, though she didn't fully understand what Amara meant. "What should I do, great Amara?" Amara waved her hand dismissively. "Gather the other priestesses. We will need to prepare a ritual. One that will show the villagers the true danger of that boy." As the priestess hurried away, Amara turned back to the altar of the river god, her eyes narrowing. "If I can't control the villagers through fear," she muttered to herself, "then I will make them fear the very thing they believe to be a blessing." She had one last move to play, and she would make sure it turned the village against Ijeoma and Nadazi forever. For the next few days, the village settled into a strange calm. The river continued to flow with newfound life, and the fish harvests increased. The villagers, still amazed by the display of Nadazi's power, began to show more respect toward Ijeoma. People no longer avoided her in the streets, and some even offered her kind words when they passed by. But Ijeoma knew better than to believe that everything had changed. Amara was still lurking in the shadows, and Ijeoma could feel her presence like a dark cloud hanging over the village. Obina had warned her that Amara would not give up so easily, and Ijeoma knew she had to remain vigilant. One morning, as Ijeoma was tending to her small garden outside her hut, a villager came running toward her, out of breath and wide-eyed with panic. "Ijeoma," the woman called. "You must come quickly. Something terrible has happened at the river." Ijeoma's heart leaped into her throat. Without wasting a moment, she scooped Nadazi into her arms and rushed toward the riverbank. When she arrived, a crowd had already gathered, their faces filled with fear and confusion. At the edge of the river, several of the village's fishing boats had been overturned, their contents spilled into the water. Fish, once abundant, now floated lifeless on the surface of the river. The once clear water had turned a murky, sickly green. Obina was already there, examining the scene with a deep frown. He turned to Ijeoma as she approached, his face grim. "This is no accident," he said quietly. "Someone has tampered with the river." Ijeoma's stomach churned as she stared at the devastation. She knew immediately who was behind this, Amara. This was her doing, her way of turning the villagers' trust back into fear. Amara stepped forward from the crowd, her expression one of feigned concern. "It seems the river god is not as pleased with the child as we thought," she said, her voice smooth and manipulative. "Perhaps the boy's power is not a blessing after all." The villagers murmured in confusion, their earlier hope wavering in the face of this new disaster. They looked to Ijeoma, their eyes filled with questions and doubt. Obina stepped forward, his voice firm. "This is not the child's doing. This is the work of those who seek to spread fear." Amara's smile never wavered. "And how can you be so sure? The river has always been a delicate balance, and the arrival of this boy may have upset that balance." Ijeoma's heart raced as she felt the villagers' trust slipping away. She had to act quickly, or everything. Ijeoma's pulse raced as the weight of the villagers' gazes settled on her. The fish floating lifeless on the water, the overturned boats, and the sickly color of the river, all painted a picture of devastation, and Amara's poisonous words were creeping into the hearts of her people. Her eyes flicked to Nadazi, who clung to her side, still too young to understand the storm swirling around him. She had to protect him. She could not let Amara's lies take root and destroy the fragile hope that had begun to bloom in the village. Summoning all her courage, Ijeoma stepped forward, cradling Nadazi in her arms, and faced the crowd. "Do not be deceived." Her voice rang out, clear and strong, cutting through the murmurs of doubt. "What has happened here is not the doing of my son. He is not a curse, he is a blessing, as we all saw when the river was restored." Some of the villagers looked uncertain, their faces torn between what they had witnessed and the fear that Amara was trying to stir. But others, still shaken by the sight of the dead fish and the foul water, were swayed by Amara's manipulative words. Amara, her face composed but her eyes gleaming with triumph, stepped closer. "Ijeoma, the evidence speaks for itself. The river was once restored, yes, but now it is dying. How can we be sure that the boy's presence isn't what has angered Ovia? You cannot deny that the signs are there." Ijeoma clenched her fists, refusing to back down. "This is no act of the gods, Amara. This is sabotage. Someone has done this deliberately to turn the village against my son, to make you all doubt the blessing that he is." Obina stepped to Ijeoma's side, his presence a steadying force. "Ijeoma is right. This is not natural. The river's decline has been caused by human hands, not divine anger. We must not let fear cloud our judgment." The elder, the one who had spoken in support of Nadazi before, shuffled forward. His ancient face was creased with concern, but there was still a flicker of belief in his eyes. "What proof do you have of this sabotage, Obina? The village has suffered greatly these past months. If this is truly the work of human hands, we must know who is responsible." Obina's jaw tightened. "I have no proof yet, but I will find it. Give me time. Until then, do not turn your backs on Ijeoma or her son. The river god's blessing is not so easily undone." The elder nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the troubled faces of the villagers. "Very well. But we cannot ignore the state of the river. The people are afraid. We must see action soon, or I fear their trust will be lost." Amara, though thwarted for now, didn't let her smile fade. She knew that fear was a powerful tool, and the seeds she had sown were already sprouting. She would bide her time. That night, Obina sat outside Ijeoma's hut, staring at the darkened sky. The stars twinkled above, but his mind was preoccupied with the unfolding events. He had promised to find proof of sabotage, but he wasn't sure where to begin. Ijeoma sat beside him, cradling Nadesi, who had fallen asleep in her arms. "What are we going to do, Obina? The villagers are frightened. Even with your words, I can feel their trust slipping away." Obina sighed. "I know. Amara is a master of manipulation. She has turned the situation to her advantage, and now we must find a way to expose her deceit." He thought back to the river, to the overturned boats and the dead fish. It didn't make sense. The river had been full of life just days ago. Something, or someone, had interfered with the natural order. But who? And why? "I'll start by questioning the fisherman," Obina said, breaking the silence. "Someone may have seen something, anything, that could point to what happened. I'll also investigate the shrine. Amara holds too much power there. If there's any clue to her involvement, it might be there." Igioma nodded, her eyes tired but resolute. "Be careful, Obina. Amara is dangerous. If she finds out you're investigating her, she won't hesitate to act." Obina's face hardened. "I know. But I can't sit by while she destroys everything. I'll take the risk." The next morning, Obina made his way to the riverbank, where several of the fishermen were inspecting their boats. The air was thick with tension, the smell of decay from the dead fish hanging heavy in the air. He approached an older fisherman, a man named Chikwudi, whose weathered face told of years spent on the water. "Chikwudi," Obina called, "I need to ask you something about the river." The fisherman looked up, his expression weary. "What is it, Obina?" "The river is dying." "What more is there to say?" Obina stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I believe what happened to the river was no accident. Someone caused this. Did you see anything unusual before the river turned?" Chikwudi frowned, scratching his grizzled chin. "Unusual? Well, now that you mention it, there was something strange. A few nights ago, I saw a group of people near the shrine, priests and priestesses, I think. They were performing some sort of ritual, but it didn't look like the usual prayers to Ovia." Obina's heart quickened. "Did you recognize any of them?" Chikwudi hesitated, glancing around as if to make sure no one was listening. "I couldn't see their faces, but one of them had a voice like Amara's. I know that woman's voice anywhere." Obina's suspicions were confirmed. "Thank you, Chikwudi. You've been a great help." As he turned to leave, Chikwudi grabbed his arm. "Be careful, Obina. If you go poking around where Amara's involved, you're bound to find trouble. She's not someone you want to cross lightly." Obina nodded grimly. "I know the risks. But I can't let her destroy this village." That night, Obina made his way to the shrine. The air was still, the village eerily quiet. He moved like a shadow, avoiding the main paths, making sure no one saw him. The shrine stood at the heart of the village, its stone walls bathed in moonlight. Obina had been there many times before, but tonight, it felt different, sinister. He could feel Amara's presence even before he entered. He slipped inside, the cool air of the shrine greeting him like a chill down his spine. He moved quickly, searching for any sign of the ritual Chikwudi had mentioned. If he could find proof of Amara's involvement, he could expose her. In the corner of the shrine, near the altar of the river god, Obina spotted something, a small bundle of herbs, wrapped in cloth and hidden beneath a stone. He knelt down, carefully unwrapping the bundle. Inside were strange symbols drawn in ash, and the pungent smell of foul magic filled the air. His heart pounded as he realized what he had found. This was no offering to Ovia, this was dark magic, the kind used to corrupt and manipulate the natural order. Before he could react, a voice echoed from the shadows. "I see you found my little secret, Obina." Obina spun around, his blood running cold. Amara stood in the doorway, her eyes glinting with malevolence. "Did you really think you could outsmart me?" she purred, stepping closer. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into." Obina's hand tightened around the bundle of herbs. "The villagers will know the truth. I'll make sure of it." Amara laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the shrine. "Oh, Obina. You think the truth matters? By the time I'm done, they'll be begging me to save them from the very thing you're trying to protect. Obina's heart raced as he realized the danger he was in. He had found the proof he needed, but now, he had to survive long enough to reveal it.